the colony that vanished without a trace. In the quiet expanse of coastal North America, there once existed a small settlement known as Roanoke. It was a place where hope mingled with uncertainty, and dreams were both nurtured and tested by the untamed wilderness that surrounded it. The story begins in the late 1500s when a group of settlers from England arrived on these shores, eager to carve out a new life for themselves in what they hoped would become a thriving colony. Among them was John, a skilled carpenter whose hands could shape wood into sturdy structures, and Mary, a herbalist who knew the secrets of plants and their healing properties. There was also Thomas, a young man barely out of his teens whose curiosity about the new world was matched only by his courage. Before we begin, tell me, where are you listening from and what time is it there? The journey across the Atlantic had been long and arduous, with storms that threatened to capsize their ship and supplies dwindling faster than anticipated. Yet, when they finally set foot on Roanoke Island, there was an air of excitement mixed with trepidation. The land was lush and green, teeming with life, yet it was also unfamiliar and unpredictable. As they began to build their homes and fortify their position, they felt a sense of accomplishment, but also a deep awareness of the challenges ahead. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. Life in Roanoke was hard, but not without its moments of joy. The settlers worked tirelessly under the blazing sun, their faces glistening with sweat as they planted crops, constructed buildings, and forged tools. At night, they gathered around flickering campfires, sharing stories of their homeland and dreams of the future. Laughter echoed through the stillness of the forest, and for a brief time, it seemed as though they might truly make this strange new world their home. However, relations with the native tribes were complex. While some encounters were friendly and led to exchanges of knowledge and goods, others were fraught with tension and misunderstanding. The settlers tried to bridge the gap, learning bits of the local language and customs, but mistrust lingered beneath the surface. Despite these difficulties, they pressed on, determined to establish a foothold in this vast and uncharted territory. Then came the day when everything changed. A supply ship was overdue, and the governor of the colony, Walter, decided to return to England to procure much-needed provisions. He left behind a small group of settlers, promising to return as quickly as possible. Before departing, he instructed them to leave a message if they were forced to move. They agreed upon a plan. Should they relocate, they would carve the name of their destination into a tree or post. With heavy hearts but hopeful spirits, the settlers waved farewell to their leader, watching as his ship disappeared over the horizon. Months passed, and then years. The settlers waited patiently at first, maintaining their routines and tending to their needs. But as time dragged on and no ships appeared on the horizon, worry began to creep in. Supplies grew scarce, and the once bustling colony fell silent. Still, they held on to hope, carving messages into trees and marking their presence in case rescuers arrived. One fateful morning, the colony awoke to find something amiss. Footsteps echoed through the dirt paths, but no one could be seen. Tools lay abandoned mid-task, as if their owners had simply vanished into thin air. The eerie stillness was unsettling, and a chill ran down the spines of those who remained. Had they been attacked? Had they chosen to leave en masse? No one knew for certain. Among the final remnants of their existence was a single clue etched into a wooden post: Croton. It was a word that sent shivers down the backs of those who read it. Croatoan was the name of a nearby island and a tribe known to inhabit it. Did it mean they had moved there willingly, or had they been taken against their will? Years later, when a relief expedition finally reached Roanoke, they found nothing but empty fields and ghostly echoes of what had once been. The colony had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only questions and theories. Some speculated that they had integrated with the Croatoan tribe, while others believed they had perished due to disease, starvation, or conflict. Still, others whispered of darker forces at play, of curses or supernatural events that defied explanation. As the sun sets over Roanoke Island today, Casting long shadows across the landscape, the mystery lingers like a haunting melody. Who were the people who lived here? What drove them to disappear so completely? And why does their story continue to resonate through the ages? For John, Mary, and Thomas, the answers may have been lost to time, but their legacy endures. In the rustle of leaves and the whisper of winds, their voices can almost be heard, calling out from a past that refuses to be forgotten. Their tale serves as a reminder of the fragility of human endeavor and the enduring power of mystery. Pause. The ship found adrift with no one on board. On a quiet morning in the Gulf of Mexico, just as the sun began to rise over the horizon and paint the sky with hues of orange and pink, an unusual event unfolded. The USS Horizon Voyager, a well-known cargo vessel registered in the United States, was discovered adrift off the coast of Louisiana. The weather that day was calm, with only a gentle breeze ruffling the surface of the water. It seemed like any other ordinary day for sailors who had spent years navigating these waters. However, what awaited the Coast Guard crew when they boarded the ship would leave them stunned. The first responders arrived at 7:15 a.m. local time after receiving an anonymous distress call through maritime channels. Lieutenant James Carter led the team aboard the massive vessel. As his boots clanked against the metal deck, he noticed something immediately odd. The entire ship was eerily silent. Normally, ships this size hummed with activity from engines running or crew members moving about their duties. But here, there was nothing but an unsettling stillness. Carter radioed back to headquarters. "We're on board now. Something doesn't feel right." His voice carried a note of concern. Pausing briefly before continuing further exploration, he ordered his team to split up while maintaining communication via radios. Each member moved cautiously down corridors lined with closed doors and past empty workstations where papers lay scattered across desks as though abandoned mid-task. Inside the bridge, they found all navigational systems functioning properly yet unmanned. Charts were spread out neatly alongside coffee cups, left half empty near control panels. Everything appeared normal except for one glaring fact: there wasn't a single soul present among the expected complement of 25 crew members. Moving deeper into the interior sections of the ship revealed more clues but no answers. In the dining hall, trays of food sat untouched on tables arranged for breakfast service. Silverware gleamed under overhead lights as if waiting patiently for its owners to return. Downstairs in the sleeping quarters, beds remained unmade. Personal belongings such as photographs, books, and clothing items strewn carelessly around rooms, suggesting haste during departure. Yet, despite these signs pointing towards recent human presence, not a trace of anyone could be found anywhere on board. By noon, search efforts expanded beyond the confines of the ship itself. Helicopters scoured surrounding waters, while divers checked beneath the hull for possible hiding spots or evidence submerged below decks. Meanwhile, forensic specialists carefully documented every detail inside, hoping to piece together what might have happened. They noted strange patterns etched onto some bulkhead walls, resembling symbols neither sailor nor expert could identify. These markings puzzled everyone involved even further, adding layers of mystery atop already baffling circumstances. Back ashore later that evening, investigators gathered data collected throughout the day, trying desperately to make sense of it all. Interviews conducted with port officials confirmed the last known location of the Horizon Voyager prior to disappearing had been Galveston, Texas, several days earlier. Records showed nothing unusual reported by either captain or officers regarding mechanical failures, pirate threats, or adverse weather conditions capable of causing such sudden evacuation without warning. Furthermore, lifeboats attached to davits remained secure, indicating abandonment hadn't occurred conventionally either. As darkness fell once again over New Orleans harbor area, where Investigation Command Center operated temporarily, theories swirled amongst professionals ranging from supernatural explanations involving sea monsters straight-out folklore tales told generations ago along coastal communities, scientific hypotheses concerning advanced alien abduction scenarios inspired perhaps too much science fiction literature consumption recently. Simple, albeit improbable accidents involving mass drowning incidents, do unknown freak accident within enclosed spaces deep within bowels of steel leviathan, cutting off escape routes, leaving no survivors behind, able tell story firsthand afterward. Days turned into weeks, then months, as leads dried up faster than new ones emerged. Public interest waned somewhat, though dedicated individuals continued pursuing truth tirelessly. Among them included marine historian Dr. Emily Thompson, whose fascination with maritime mysteries drove her relentless pursuit, uncovering secrets hidden beneath waves, covering vast oceans, covering planet Earth. Her research delved deeply into historical accounts, similar occurrences dating centuries past, comparing notes, patterns emerging, suggesting possible connections, linking cases separated, great distances, time periods alike. Meanwhile, families affected directly waited anxiously, news regarding fate, loved ones lost aboard mysterious voyage, never completed officially recorded logs, history books forever marked, question marks, end entries describing journey, USS Horizon. Voyager started innocently enough, sunny spring morning, eventually becoming infamous, enigma haunting imaginations worldwide long after original events faded. Memory, common people living everyday lives, unaware a larger picture playing out. Silently unfolding backdrop, daily routines, mundane existence, contrast, stark reality, encountered those brave souls, dared venture unknown depths. Seeking answers, ultimately remaining elusive, grasp, mere mortals bound, earthbound limitations, comprehension, understanding beyond reach. Mortal minds, confined material realm, physical senses fail, perceive truths, existing, parallel dimensions, invisible sight, naked eye alone. It was a crisp autumn morning in Seattle, Washington. The air carried the scent of pine trees and wet earth as the sun peeked through scattered clouds. At SeaTac International Airport, passengers were boarding Flight 305 bound for Chicago. Among them was a man in his early 30s with an unassuming demeanor. He wore a dark jacket, jeans, and boots that seemed perfectly ordinary for the season. His face betrayed no signs of anxiety or excitement as he took his seat near the back of the plane. The flight attendants moved efficiently about their duties, offering pre-flight refreshments while ensuring all safety protocols were followed. Passengers chatted casually, some engrossed in books or magazines. The atmosphere inside the cabin was calm and routine, just another day in commercial aviation. Little did anyone know how this seemingly mundane journey would soon become one of the most mysterious events in American history. As the Boeing 727 ascended into the sky at around 10 o'clock in the morning, everything appeared normal. Then, approximately 30 minutes after takeoff, the man handed a note to one of the flight attendants. She glanced at it quickly before handing it back, thinking it might be a joke or prank. But when he insisted she read it thoroughly, her expression shifted from curiosity to alarm. The message demanded ransom money, along with several parachutes. This revelation sent shockwaves throughout the crew, but they maintained composure, adhering strictly to protocol under such circumstances. Upon landing at another airport where authorities had been alerted by then, bags filled with cash totaling $20,000 were delivered on board according to instructions given by the hijacker. Meanwhile, military jets shadowed the aircraft closely during its maneuvers across state lines, an eerie reminder of heightened tensions surrounding what unfolded above ground level. Once airborne again towards Mexico City, as per demands made earlier, something unexpected happened. Near Portland, Oregon's airspace, the hijacker lowered the stairs located at the rear exit door, despite adverse weather conditions outside, including strong winds and heavy rain showers pelting against metal surfaces audibly. Without hesitation, he leapt out into oblivion, carrying only one parachute strapped securely onto himself, plus bundle containing part of stolen funds wrapped tightly within layers, protecting against elements awaiting him below. Hours passed without any sign of recovery efforts succeeding, despite extensive searches conducted over vast regions covered by dense forests, crisscrossed by rivers flowing endlessly beneath towering mountain ranges, standing guard silently against time itself. Authorities scoured every possible location, reachable either on foot or via vehicles, capable traversing rugged terrains, yet found nothing conclusive, linking directly back to individual responsible initiating daring escapade witnessed worldwide through media coverage, spreading rapidly thanks technological advancements, connecting people globally almost instantaneously nowadays compared previous decades ago. Questions lingered unanswered long after initial investigations concluded fruitlessly regarding identity, true intentions, ultimate fate, mysterious figure, whose bold actions captivated imaginations, everywhere sparking debates, theories ranging plausible explanations, fantastical scenarios, constructed minds seeking clarity amidst ambiguity, shrouding entire incidents still today remains unsolved, mystery haunting collective consciousness, humanity reminding us sometimes life imitates art. More stranger fiction could ever dream up, creating legends live forever, memory, corridors, history books, written generations, come marvel, wonder, ponder, possibilities, endless wonders, universe holds hidden, plain sight, waiting, discovery. Next, brave soul dare, venture unknown realms, beyond known boundaries. Explore depths, heights never imagined. Before stepping stone greater journeys await those willing, embrace uncertainty, risk failure, achieve greatness, leave lasting legacy behind, inspire others, follow path, courage, determination, perseverance, overcoming adversity, achieving impossible dreams, reality, materializing visions, once thought impossible, manifest destiny, manifesting destinies, countless souls, walking earth, sharing common thread, humanity binding together, universal truth, understood spoken words, transcending language barriers, uniting hearts, minds, spirits, celebrating diversity, unity, strength, found weakness, transformed triumph, overcomes despair. Hope reignites embers, passion burns brightly eternal flame, guiding light, darkness dispels, fear replaces faith, belief, possibilities, infinite potential, limitless horizon, expands continuously ever-changing landscape. Evolution continues onward, upward, forward, always moving, never stopping, restlessly, seeking answers, questions asked, answered, raising new ones, turn cycle repeats, perpetually onwards, upwards, forwards, always. And so, the legend of the skyjacker who jumped and vanished endures a tale whispered among pilots and passengers alike whenever planes soar high above the clouds. It serves as a poignant reminder of the mysteries that continue to unfold in our skies, mysteries that challenge our understanding and ignite our imaginations. Whether this story will ever find its conclusion remains to be seen, but until then, it stands as a testament to human ingenuity, courage, and perhaps even folly. For now, we can only speculate about the fate of that enigmatic figure lost to the elements, hoping that somewhere, somehow, justice may one day prevail. Until then, the skies hold their secrets close, whispering softly to those who dare to listen. It was a quiet evening in the suburban neighborhood of Maplewood Heights, where life seemed to move at its own gentle pace. The sun had just dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of orange and pink. Birds chirped softly as they prepared for the night, and the occasional sound of car doors closing echoed through the streets. This was the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names, where children played outside until dusk, and where neighbors exchanged friendly waves over white picket fences. The Johnson family lived on Elm Street, one of the quieter roads in the area. Their home was modest but charming, with ivy climbing up the walls and flower beds bursting with color. Inside, the house smelled of freshly baked cookies and warm wood polish. It was here that three women, Mrs. Johnson, her daughter Emily, and her sister-in-law Clarice, appeared without a trace one fateful evening. Let's rewind to earlier that day. Mrs. Johnson, a woman in her late 40s with kind eyes and a calm demeanor, had spent the morning tending to her garden. She loved nothing more than watching her roses bloom, and she often said it brought her peace. As she worked, Emily, her 16-year-old daughter, sat on the porch steps reading a book. Emily was bright and curious, always eager to learn new things. Her curly hair framed her face as she turned the pages intently. Nearby, Clara, a spirited woman in her early 30s, helped set up for dinner. Clara had a knack for making even the simplest meals feel special, and today was no exception. By late afternoon, the air grew slightly cooler, carrying with it the scent of pine from the nearby forest. The trio decided to take a short walk together before preparing supper. They strolled down the familiar path that led to the small park at the end of their street. The park was serene, with swings swaying gently in the breeze and trees casting long shadows across the grass. They laughed and chatted about everything from school projects to recipes they wanted to try. It was a perfect, momentous snapshot of happiness frozen in time. But then, something happened. As the clock struck 6, the trio never returned home. At first, Mr. Johnson didn't worry too much. He assumed they'd stopped by a friend's house or decided to extend their walk. But as hours passed and darkness settled over the town, concern began to creep in. By 9 o'clock, he called the police. Officers arrived promptly, flashlights cutting through the night as they searched the area. Neighbors gathered outside the Johnson residence, whispering among themselves. Some offered words of comfort, while others exchanged uneasy glances. Detective Carter, a seasoned investigator with years of experience, took charge of the case. He questioned Mr. Johnson thoroughly, asking about any unusual activity or potential threats the family might have faced. Mr. Johnson, a man of few words, struggled to provide answers. They were happy, he said quietly, his voice tinged with sadness. There was nothing out of the ordinary. The investigation unfolded slowly, revealing bits and pieces of what may have occurred. Surveillance footage from a convenience store near the park showed the three women walking toward the parking lot around 6:30 p.m. After that, there was nothing. No further sightings, no phone calls, no ransom notes. It was as if they had vanished into thin air. Days turned into weeks, and the community remained glued to the unfolding mystery. Flyers with the women's pictures appeared on every telephone pole and bulletin board. People prayed for their safe return, lighting candles in churches and holding vigils under the stars. Yet, despite all efforts, no concrete leads emerged. Meanwhile, Detective Carter delved deeper into the case. He discovered that Mrs. Johnson had received an anonymous letter a week prior to her disappearance. The letter contained cryptic messages warning her to leave while you still can. Was this a clue or merely a coincidence? Carter also learned that Clara had been involved in a minor legal dispute months ago, though nothing serious enough to suggest foul play. Each thread led to dead ends, leaving the detective frustrated yet determined. The media picked up on the story, sparking national interest. Reporters flooded Maplewood Heights, interviewing residents and broadcasting updates live. For some, the attention brought hope. Perhaps someone somewhere would recognize the women and come forward. For others, it felt invasive, disrupting the peaceful atmosphere they cherished so much. As seasons changed, the case lingered unresolved. Spring gave way to summer, and summer to fall. Leaves fell from the trees, crunching underfoot as people walked past the Johnson house. Life continued for the rest of the neighborhood, though the absence of those three women left an undeniable void. Children who once played freely now did so with watchful eyes, and parents warned them not to wander too far. Years later, the mystery persisted. Theories abounded. Some suggested abduction, others pointed to voluntary disappearance. A few believed in supernatural explanations, citing legends of the nearby woods being haunted. Regardless of speculation, one thing remained certain. The lives of everyone connected to the Johnson family had been irrevocably altered. In moments of quiet reflection, Mr. Johnson would sit alone on his porch, staring at the empty swing where Emily used to sit. He remembered her laughter, her curiosity, her dreams of becoming a writer. He thought of his wife, whose gentle hands nurtured both their home and his heart. And he missed Clara, whose energy lit up every room she entered. Though time dulled the sharp edges of grief, it never fully erased the pain. On clear nights, when the moon hung low and the crickets sang their songs, Mr. Johnson whispered into the darkness, "If you're listening, We're waiting for you." It was a crisp autumn morning in the small town of Maplewood, USA. The air carried a refreshing chill, and the golden sunlight filtered through the vibrant leaves of maple trees lining Main Street. This picturesque setting would soon become the backdrop to an unsolved mystery that haunted the community for decades. Five friends, Ethan Carter, Mia Thompson, Lucas Grayson, Emma Brooks, and Jake Harper, disappeared without explanation on a fateful Saturday afternoon. They were all 17 years old, students at Maplewood High School, known for their close-knit bond and adventurous spirits. The group had planned what they called the Great Escape, a day trip to Whispering Pines Forest, a sprawling woodland located about 20 miles outside of town. It was meant to be a fun outing filled with laughter, nature walks, and perhaps even some light camping. But it turned into something far more sinister. On that morning, Ethan's mother dropped them off near the forest entrance around 10 o'clock. She waved goodbye as her son climbed into the backseat of Jake's car, a sleek red sedan that gleamed under the sun. "Have fun, kids!" she called out cheerfully before driving away. Little did she know these would be among the last words spoken to her son. As the car disappeared down the winding road leading deeper into the forest, no one could have anticipated the events that awaited. Whispering Pines Forest was famous not only for its breathtaking scenery, but also for local legends passed down through generations. Some claimed strange lights flickered in the woods at night, while others whispered tales of unexplained noises echoing through the trees. Despite these stories, the forest remained a popular destination for hikers and adventurers alike. For the five friends, it seemed like the perfect place to create lasting memories. By noon, the group had reached their intended destination, a secluded clearing surrounded by towering pines. Here, they set up a makeshift picnic area, spreading blankets over the soft grass and unpacking snacks from cooler bags. Laughter filled the air as they joked about school life, future plans, and everything in between. According to later accounts from witnesses who briefly crossed paths with them earlier that day, they appeared happy and carefree, unaware of any impending danger. However, just after lunchtime, things began to shift subtly. Clouds rolled in unexpectedly, casting long shadows across the clearing. A cool breeze rustled through the branches above, carrying with it an eerie silence that seemed unnatural for such a lively spot. None of the friends mentioned feeling uneasy at first, but retrospectively, many wondered if this change in weather might have been a warning sign. At approximately 2 o'clock, the group decided to explore further into the forest. Armed with cameras and water bottles, they ventured beyond the familiar trails toward lesser-known paths marked only by faded signs. These trails were notoriously difficult to navigate, even for experienced explorers. Yet, fueled by youthful confidence, they pressed onward, eager to discover hidden corners of the wilderness. As the hours passed, the surroundings grew increasingly disorienting. Trees seemed taller here, their trunks twisting unnaturally. Sunlight barely penetrated the dense canopy above. Time itself felt distorted, moments stretched longer than expected, yet somehow slipped away too quickly. At 3:30, according to their watches, they paused briefly to take photos beside a moss-covered boulder. This image became one of the final pieces of evidence left behind, showing all five smiling brightly despite growing unease creeping into their expressions. Then came the moment when everything changed. One moment, they stood together, discussing whether to turn back or push forward. The next confusion erupted as each friend reported seeing peculiar movements out of the corner of their eye, shadows darting between trees, faint whispers carried by the wind. Panic began to creep in as they realized they couldn't retrace their steps accurately anymore. Maps became useless, compasses spun erratically, and GPS devices lost signal entirely. By 4 o'clock, desperation set in. Calls for help echoed through the forest, though responses were absent. Cell phones showed no bars, leaving them completely isolated. Darkness fell sooner than expected, cloaking the landscape in oppressive blackness punctuated only by the glow of flashlights. Huddled close together, the friends tried to remain calm, agreeing to wait until morning before attempting another escape route. But morning never arrived for them. Search parties organized by concerned family members combed the forest thoroughly starting Sunday morning. Helicopters hovered overhead, dogs sniffed every trail, and volunteers scoured every inch of ground. Yet, there was no trace of Ethan, Mia, Lucas, Emma, or Jaconaut, so much as a footprint or discarded item belonging to them. Their disappearance remains one of the most baffling cases in American history. In the weeks following, theories abounded. Some suggested foul play, pointing fingers at unknown assailants lurking within the forest. Others proposed supernatural explanations, citing the region's folklore regarding otherworldly entities. Scientists hypothesized natural phenomena, such as sudden sinkholes swallowing entire areas unnoticed. However, none of these theories held concrete proof. Years went by, and while new leads occasionally surfaced, none led to definitive answers. Families clung to hope, refusing to believe their loved ones were gone forever. Memorials were erected in the town square bearing photographs of the missing quintet frozen in time during happier days. Visitors often left flowers, letters, and candles beneath these tributes, hoping somehow their messages might reach those lost souls. To this day, the case of the five friends who vanished without explanation continues to intrigue researchers, writers, and anyone captivated by mysteries. Each retelling adds layers to the story, blending fact with speculation. What truly happened to Ethan, Mia, Lucas, Emma, and Jake? Did they stumble upon something beyond human comprehension, or did tragedy strike in ways we cannot yet understand? The sun was setting over the small town of Maplewood, casting long shadows across the quiet streets. It was a peaceful evening in late autumn when everything took an unexpected turn. The story begins with Emily Carter, a young woman in her mid-20s who had recently moved to this quaint town for a fresh start. She worked at a local bookstore during the day and spent her evenings exploring the nearby countryside on winding roads that seemed to stretch endlessly into the horizon. On that particular Friday night, Emily decided to take a drive after work. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of fallen leaves, and the golden hues of twilight painted the sky. As she drove along Route 147, a narrow road lined with towering oak trees, she felt a sense of calm wash over her. Little did she know that this would be her last journey anyone would witness. At around 8:30 p.m., a passerby noticed something unusual near mile marker 23, a car lying wrecked by the side of the road. Its headlights were still glowing faintly, illuminating the darkening forest beyond. The vehicle bore no immediate signs of damage from a collision. It appeared as though it had simply veered off the road and come to rest against a tree. However, what struck the passerby as strange was that there was no sign of the driver. When authorities arrived shortly after 9:00 p.m., they confirmed that the abandoned car belonged to Emily Carter. Inside, her purse lay untouched on the passenger seat, alongside her keys and phone. There were no visible signs of struggle or violence within the vehicle. A faint trail of tire marks led away from the main road but disappeared abruptly into the dense woods. Despite extensive searches conducted throughout the night, neither Emily nor any further evidence could be found. The following morning brought a chill to Maplewood, not just from the weather, but from the mystery surrounding Emily's disappearance. Detective Mark Thompson, assigned to the case, began interviewing residents who might have seen something unusual that evening. One neighbor mentioned seeing Emily leave her house around 7:45 p.m., dressed casually in jeans and a sweater. Another recalled hearing distant sirens later that night, though none could pinpoint their origin. As days turned into weeks, theories swirled through the community. Some speculated foul play, pointing to the isolated nature of Route 147, where strangers often passed unnoticed. Others suggested Emily may have wandered into the wilderness, disoriented or injured, possibly succumbing to hypothermia given the dropping temperatures. Yet another theory proposed she might have left voluntarily, seeking escape from undisclosed troubles in her life. Detective Thompson delved deeper into Emily's background, uncovering fragments of her past. Born in Chicago, she had grown up in a modest household before attending college in Wisconsin. Her move to Maplewood came after a brief stint working in New York City, where personal challenges prompted her search for tranquility elsewhere. Interviews with former colleagues revealed Emily as a kind yet reserved individual, someone who kept her private life closely guarded. Meanwhile, forensic experts examined the wreckage thoroughly. Traces of mud on the tires hinted at recent travel on unpaved paths, while faint scuff marks inside the car suggested hurried movements. Strangely, no bloodstains or other biological evidence indicated trauma occurred within the vehicle. This absence only deepened the enigma surrounding her vanishing act. By mid-November, seasonal changes added layers of difficulty to ongoing investigations. Snowfall blanketed the area, erasing potential clues hidden beneath frozen ground. Search parties ventured deeper into the woods, using tracking dogs and drones equipped with thermal imaging cameras. Each expedition returned empty-handed, leaving frustration mounting among both law enforcement and concerned citizens alike. Public interest waned gradually as months passed, yet those closest to Emily remained steadfast in pursuing answers. Her sister, Lisa Carter, traveled from Illinois to join efforts locally, bringing photographs and personal belongings, hoping these might jog memories of witnesses overlooked earlier. Together with Detective Thompson, they revisited every lead, no matter how trivial it seemed initially. Spring brought renewed hope as melting snow exposed new areas previously inaccessible. During one such exploration, hikers stumbled upon remnants of fabric caught on thorny bushes miles away from the original site. Analysis confirmed it matched clothing fibers identified in Emily's wardrobe. This discovery reignited momentum behind the investigation, prompting expanded searches across broader regions. Yet, even amidst progress, questions lingered unanswered. Why had Emily driven to such a secluded location? What compelled her exit from the car under uncertain circumstances? And most importantly, where had she gone afterward? Years later, the case file remains open, its pages filled with notes and sketches depicting scenarios ranging from plausible to improbable. For some, closure will never fully arrive without definitive proof regarding Emily's fate. But for others, particularly within Maplewood, her memory persists as a reminder of mysteries life sometimes refuses to explain. On a chilly autumn evening in Boston, Massachusetts, the city was alive with its usual hustle and bustle. The streets were filled with people rushing home after a long day at work, while others lingered around outdoor cafes, enjoying their last moments of fresh air before winter set in. Inside McGinty's Pub, one of the oldest bars in town, patrons gathered to unwind over pints of ale. The dimly lit interior buzzed with laughter and conversation as the bartender skillfully crafted drinks for eager customers. Among them sat John Carter, a 35-year-old graphic designer from Cambridge. He had been sitting quietly at his usual spot near the corner table, nursing a glass of whiskey. John was known among friends as an easygoing man who enjoyed simple pleasures, a good book, a quiet walk by the Charles River, or just a peaceful night out like this one. But tonight felt different somehow. There seemed to be something weighing heavily on his mind. As midnight approached, the atmosphere inside McGinty's shifted slightly. Conversations grew softer, punctuated only by occasional bursts of laughter. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling through the trees lining Beacon Street. It was then that John decided it was time to leave. Paying his tab with a polite nod to the bartender, he slipped into his coat and stepped outside into the crisp night air. The sidewalk was slick with fallen leaves, glowing faintly under the glow of streetlights. A few blocks away, the distant hum of traffic could still be heard, but here, close to the pub, the world felt quieter, almost serene. John began walking eastward along Beacon Street toward the river, his breath visible in small clouds against the cool temperature. His pace was steady yet unhurried, each step accompanied by the soft crunch of leaves beneath his shoes. And then, he vanished. It happened so suddenly that even those closest to him couldn't believe what they were hearing. One moment, John Carter was walking down Beacon Street. The next, he simply disappeared without a trace. Witnesses described seeing him pause briefly near a lamppost before continuing onward, but no one saw him cross any street or enter any building. By the time police arrived following reports from concerned citizens, there was no sign of him anywhere. Detective Mark Reynolds led the investigation into John's disappearance. With over 20 years of experience in law enforcement, Detective Reynolds had seen countless cases involving missing persons. Yet nothing prepared him for the peculiarities surrounding John Carter's case. Interviews conducted with neighbors, co-workers, and family members painted a picture of a man living an ordinary life filled with routine rather than secrets or scandal. There was no indication of foul play leading up to his vanishing act, nor did anyone report receiving threats against him. Over the following days, search efforts intensified throughout Greater Boston. Officers combed through CCTV footage captured along Beacon Street and nearby areas, hoping to catch some clue about where John might have gone. Unfortunately, every lead ended in frustration. Video evidence showed John walking calmly until reaching a certain point, roughly halfway between McGinty's pub and the Charles River Bridge. After that frame, however, all traces of him ceased entirely. Meanwhile, back at John's apartment in Cambridge, investigators discovered little more than expected. His belongings remained neatly arranged, suggesting someone who took pride in maintaining order within their personal space. Notes left behind indicated plans for upcoming projects at work, along with reminders concerning social engagements scheduled later that week. Nothing suggested preparation for traveler escape. Weeks turned into months, yet answers remained elusive. Public interest waned gradually as news stories captured attention elsewhere, though privately, many continued questioning how such a thing could happen right under everyone's noses. For Detective Reynolds, however, letting go wasn't an option. Each detail uncovered only deepened the mystery instead of resolving it. Why would John stop exactly where he did? What caused him to disappear so completely? One theory, proposed by paranormal enthusiasts, gained traction online. Perhaps John had stumbled upon something extraordinary, an interdimensional portal hidden in plain sight. While far-fetched, this idea resonated with those seeking explanations beyond conventional means. Others clung to practical possibilities. Maybe amnesia struck, causing John to wander aimlessly until losing himself completely. Or worse, accidental death occurred somewhere unobserved, leaving authorities scrambling to piece together fragments afterward. Regardless of speculation, reality offered no definitive conclusion. As seasons changed once again across New England, bringing snowfall followed by spring blooms, John Carter stayed absent from both sight and memory alike. Those who knew him best kept searching silently, holding on to hope despite dwindling chances. Somewhere amidst infinite possibilities, perhaps John still existed, waiting patiently for discovery. It was a crisp autumn morning in the small town of Maplewood, USA. The air carried a faint chill, and golden leaves danced gently in the breeze as they fell from towering oak trees lining the quiet streets. A single Polaroid photograph lay abandoned by the roadside near an old wooden fence that bordered the property of Mr. Walter Thompson, a retired schoolteacher who had lived on this street for over 30 years. This was no ordinary photograph. It depicted a young girl, her wrists bound with what appeared to be thin rope, her eyes wide with fear, yet somehow defiant. The sun peeked through the gaps between clouds, casting soft light onto the image as if highlighting its presence for anyone passing by. At first glance, it seemed like just another discarded item, but closer inspection revealed something deeply unsettling about the scene captured within the frame. Passersby might have overlooked it entirely, their hurried steps taking them past without pause, but not everyone did. At precisely 7:45 a.m., Emma Carter, a local journalist working for the Maplewood Gazette, walked her dog along the familiar path she took every morning. Her usual routine involved noting changes around the neighborhood, perhaps a new flower blooming or a bird perched unusually close to her window. That day, however, Her sharp eyes caught sight of the Polaroid lying partially hidden beneath a fallen leaf. She stopped abruptly, her breath catching in her throat as realization dawned upon her. Emma bent down slowly, her fingers trembling slightly as she picked up the photo. The texture of the paper felt rough under her touch, and there were smudges across one corner where rain must have touched it at some point during the night. As she examined it more closely, questions began swirling in her mind. Who was this girl? Where had she come from? And why would someone leave such a haunting image out here for all to see? Her heart raced as she turned the photograph over, hoping against hope to find some clue written on the back. Instead, she found nothing, just blank white space staring back at her like a riddle waiting to be solved. Still, there was something oddly deliberate about how the picture ended up exactly where it did, almost as though whoever placed it wanted it to be discovered. Taking a deep breath, Emma decided then and there that she needed answers. With the Polaroid clutched tightly in her hand, she continued walking home, her thoughts racing faster than ever before. By the time she reached her cozy little cottage nestled at the end of Elm Street, she already knew what she had to do next. Inside, the atmosphere shifted dramatically compared to the serene outdoors. Emma's normally calm demeanor gave way to urgency as she dialed Detective Mark Reynolds' number immediately after setting the photograph carefully on her kitchen table. He answered promptly, his voice steady despite the early hour. "Detective Reynolds," he said, pausing briefly before continuing, "this is Emma Carter calling. I think you should take a look at something I found this morning." There was a slight tremor in her voice now, betraying the gravity of her discovery even through the phone line. Mark listened intently as Emma described the Polaroid and its location. His professional tone masked any immediate reaction, but internally, alarms were already ringing loud and clear. After hanging up, he gathered his team swiftly, instructing them to meet him at the exact spot where the photograph was discovered. By mid-morning, law enforcement vehicles filled the usually tranquil Maplewood streets. Yellow police tape cordoned off the area surrounding the wooden fence, while forensic specialists worked methodically to gather evidence. Every detail mattered: the position of the photograph, environmental factors like weather patterns, potential fingerprints left behind, all pieces of a puzzle yet to unfold fully. Meanwhile, back at her house, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that this case ran deeper than anyone initially realized. Sitting alone with coffee in hand, she stared at the Polaroid once again, letting her imagination wander into darker territory. What kind of person could capture such a momentous act of cruelty and then casually discard it as though it meant nothing? As hours passed, news spread quickly throughout Maplewood. Residents gathered in clusters outside grocery stores and coffee shops, whispering speculations among themselves. Some believed the photograph represented a cry for help from afar, while others suggested it might simply be part of an elaborate prank gone wrong. Regardless of theories floating around, one fact remained undeniable. Someone had deliberately chosen this specific location to place the Polaroid, suggesting familiarity with the area. Detective Reynolds returned to headquarters late afternoon, bringing along copies of the photograph for further analysis. Specialists pored over each pixel, attempting to identify distinguishing features about the girl or surroundings captured in the image. Meanwhile, public appeals went live via social media platforms, urging anyone with information to come forward. Among those scrolling through updates online was Lucy Bennett, a high school senior living only blocks away from the site where the Polaroid was found. Unlike most teenagers glued solely to entertainment feeds, Lucy maintained interest in local affairs due partly to encouragement from her father, a former detective himself. When she saw the shared post regarding the mysterious photograph, something clicked inside, a vague memory surfacing unexpectedly. Lucy rushed upstairs to dig through boxes stored in her attic, eventually pulling out an old family album yellowed with age. Flipping pages hastily, she landed on a section containing snapshots taken during summer vacations years ago. Among these images, one stood out eerily similar to the Polaroid making headlines today. It showed the same girl, albeit younger, posing happily beside a lake surrounded by greenery. Beneath it read handwritten text identifying the location as Lakeview Park, located approximately 20 miles east of Maplewood. Heart pounding wildly, Lucy grabbed her phone and dialed the number provided in the appeal. Speaking with authorities later confirmed suspicions brewing within her mind that connection existed between the two photographs, bridging past events possibly linked to current circumstances involving the bound girl. Back at the station, detectives pieced together emerging clues alongside testimonies pouring in from various sources. They learned that the girl pictured bore resemblance to missing persons reports filed nationwide, specifically focusing on cases involving human trafficking rings operating covertly across state lines. Each revelation added layers of complexity to the investigation, pushing teams toward uncharted territory fraught with moral dilemmas and dangerous adversaries. Days stretched into weeks as efforts intensified both locally and nationally. Law enforcement collaborated closely with federal agencies utilizing advanced technology capable of tracing digital footprints associated with known criminal enterprises suspected of involvement. Informants emerged reluctantly, offering fragmented insights into operations run underground, far beyond ordinary reach. Throughout this period, Emma persisted tirelessly, pursuing leads independently, often crossing paths with official proceedings unintentionally. Her journalistic instincts drove her relentless pursuit of truth, regardless of personal risk involved. Alongside Detective Reynolds, they formed an unlikely alliance fueled by mutual respect and shared commitment towards justice. One evening, amidst mounting pressure and dwindling resources, breakthrough finally arrived courtesy unexpected source. An anonymous tipster contacted authorities directing attention towards abandoned warehouse situated outskirts industrial district neighboring Maplewood. Surveillance operations commenced immediately, resulting dramatic raid uncovering extensive network responsible multiple abductions including identity girl depicted Polaroid. Arrests followed swiftly, implicating several key figures, masterminding operation, extending influence numerous states. Victims rescued included individuals matching descriptions, circulated earlier stages, inquiry confirming validity, initial findings sparked discovery, lone photograph discarded seemingly innocuous roadside. In aftermath, celebration, victory tempered, recognition, long road ahead, ensuring accountability perpetrators brought full extent law. Communities rallied, support affected families, fostering spirit, unity, resilience, demonstrated face, adversity, transcending boundaries, geography, culture alike. Maplewood returned normalcy gradually, though scars inflicted, recent events, lingered minds, inhabitants forever changed, experienced collective awakening, harsh realities, lurking shadows, everyday life. Polaroid itself preserved, artifact, reminder, importance, vigilance, compassion, guiding humanity, navigate complexities, modern world navigating darkness towards light, guided courage, determination, ultimately prevail. The unknown boy in the box. In a quiet town nestled in the heart of Pennsylvania, an event unfolded that would forever change the lives of those who lived there. The story begins on a crisp autumn morning when the sun rose lazily over the hills, casting long shadows across the small community of Willow Creek. It was October, and the air carried the familiar scent of fallen leaves mixed with the faint aroma of wood smoke from distant chimneys. On this particular day, at around 7:15 a.m., a local farmer named William Harper was making his way to his fields located just outside the town limits. He had been up since dawn, preparing for another day's work. As he drove his old truck along the winding country road, he noticed something unusual near the edge of the forest. Pausing for a moment, he squinted against the early morning light, trying to make out what it was. His curiosity piqued, he decided to investigate further. Pulling over carefully, William stepped out into the cool morning air. The crunch of gravel beneath his boots echoed softly in the stillness of the countryside. Approaching cautiously, he discovered a wooden box partially hidden by bushes. The box looked weathered but sturdy, its surface marked by years of exposure to the elements. Feeling a mix of apprehension and concern, William hesitated before opening it. Taking a deep breath, he slowly lifted the lid. Inside lay a young boy, no older than 8 or 9 years old. The child appeared unconscious, his face pale against the backdrop of the dark interior. William felt a lump form in his throat as he realized the gravity of the situation. Acting quickly, he called emergency services, his voice trembling slightly as he relayed the details. There's a boy here," he stammered, pausing to collect himself. "He's in a box. I don't know how he got here." Within minutes, sirens could be heard approaching from the distance. The calm morning gave way to a flurry of activity as paramedics and police officers arrived on the scene. Among them was Detective Mark Thompson, a seasoned investigator known for his sharp mind and empathetic nature. Mark approached the box with a heavy heart, already bracing himself for whatever mystery awaited him. Kneeling beside the boy, he gently checked for signs of life. Relief washed over him when he detected a faint pulse. The boy was immediately transported to Willow Creek General Hospital, where a team of doctors and nurses worked tirelessly to stabilize him. Meanwhile, back at the crime scene, investigators began their meticulous search for clues. Every inch of the area was combed for evidence that might shed light on the circumstances surrounding the boy's discovery. The wooden box itself became a focal point of the investigation, its origin and purpose unknown. As word spread through the town, residents gathered in groups, their conversations filled with speculation and concern. At the local diner, owned by Betty Jenkins, people huddled together, sipping coffee while exchanging theories. "It's unheard of," Betty remarked, shaking her head. "Who would do such a thing?" Her voice carried a tone of disbelief and sorrow, reflecting the sentiments of many in the community. Back at the hospital, the boy remained unresponsive, his condition fragile but stable. Nurses and doctors took turns monitoring him, ensuring he received the best possible care. Among them was Dr. Emily Carter, a compassionate pediatrician who dedicated herself to uncovering the identity of the mysterious child. She performed numerous tests, hoping to find any clue that might lead to answers. Each result brought both hope and frustration as pieces of the puzzle slowly came together yet remained incomplete. Days turned into weeks as the investigation progressed. Detectives interviewed countless individuals, following leads that often led to dead ends. Meanwhile, the boy began to show signs of improvement, gradually regaining consciousness. When he finally opened his eyes, it was a moment of profound relief for everyone involved. However, the joy was tempered by the fact that the boy had no memory of who he was or how he came to be in the box. Efforts were made to help him regain his memories through therapy and support. Psychologists worked closely with him, employing various techniques to stimulate recollection. Slowly but surely, fragments of his past began to emerge. He remembered snippets of a life once lived playing in a park, laughing with someone he believed to be his sister, sitting at a kitchen table eating pancakes. These glimpses offered tantalizing hints but left more questions unanswered. Meanwhile, the media picked up on the story, broadcasting it nationwide in hopes of generating leads. Reporters flocked to Willow Creek, capturing the town's efforts to solve the mystery. Among them was journalist Michael Reynolds, whose articles captured the human side of the tragedy, focusing on the resilience and determination of those involved. His words resonated with readers across the country, inspiring others to come forward with information. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the town in hues of orange and purple, a breakthrough occurred. A woman from a neighboring state contacted authorities, claiming she recognized the boy from a photograph circulated online. Her name was Laura Martinez, and she spoke with urgency, her voice trembling with emotion. "That's my nephew," she exclaimed, pausing to gather herself. "I haven't seen him in months. Please, you have to find out what happened." Laura's revelation set off a chain reaction. Investigators delved deeper into her claims, verifying her relationship to the boy and piecing together events leading up to his disappearance. What they uncovered was a tale of betrayal and heartbreak. Family tensions, financial struggles, and misguided decisions had culminated in the unimaginable act of abandoning the child. As the truth unraveled, so too did the healing process begin. The boy, now identified as Jacob, was reunited with his family under careful supervision. Counseling sessions were arranged to address the trauma experienced by all parties involved. The town of Willow Creek rallied around them, offering support and kindness in ways big and small. Years later, Jacob grew into a young man shaped by the experiences of his childhood. Though scars remained, they served as reminders of strength and survival. The memory of the boy in the box lingered in the hearts of those who had witnessed the unfolding drama, a testament to the power of community and the enduring quest for justice and understanding. The uncaught killer who spoke in riddles. It was a crisp autumn evening in the small town of Maplewood, nestled in the heart of New England. The golden hues of falling leaves swirled gently in the cool breeze as townsfolk hurried home after their daily routines. At precisely 7:15 p.m., the peaceful atmosphere was shattered by an incident that would haunt the community for decades. Detective Thomas Carter stood under the flickering streetlight outside the old library building on Elm Street. His brow furrowed deeply as he examined the cryptic message left at the scene, a riddle written in elegant handwriting on a torn piece of paper. The words seemed to dance mockingly before his eyes. "I am always hungry. I must always be fed. The finger I touch will soon turn red." Thomas sighed heavily, his breath visible in the cooling night air. This wasn't the first time such a message had appeared. Over the past several months, similar riddles had been found at various crime scenes across the state, each one preceding a brutal murder. What made this case particularly chilling was the killer's ability to communicate through these puzzles, taunting law enforcement while remaining completely undetected. The first known victim was Emily Foster, a well-liked librarian who worked just 2 blocks from where Thomas now stood. Her body had been discovered exactly 3 days after the initial riddle was found pinned to her front door. The second victim, Charles Henderson, a local mechanic, met the same fate following another mysterious note left on his car windshield. Each time, the pattern remained consistent. A riddle appeared, followed by a death 3 days later. As Detective Carter reviewed the evidence once again, he noticed something peculiar about tonight's message. Unlike previous notes, which were written with black ink, this one used red, a stark contrast that sent chills down his spine. He carefully placed the paper into an evidence bag, making sure not to smudge any potential fingerprints. Inside the police station located on Main Street, detectives Mark Wilson and Lisa Thompson joined Thomas for their regular briefing session. The room buzzed with tension as they spread out maps, photographs, and copies of all the collected riddles across the large conference table. Outside, rain began to patter against the windows, creating a somber backdrop for their discussion. "Look at the locations," Mark pointed out, tracing a line between each crime scene on the map. "They form a perfect circle around Maplewood. It's like our killer is closing in on us." Lisa adjusted her glasses, studying the latest riddle intently. And notice how the language has evolved. These aren't simple nursery rhymes anymore. They're becoming more complex, almost poetic. Thomas nodded slowly, his mind racing through possible connections. "We need to find someone who can decipher these properly. Someone familiar with both literature and criminal psychology." Their meeting stretched late into the night, fueled by cups of strong coffee and determination. As dawn broke over Maplewood, casting long shadows through the still damp streets, the team finalized their strategy. They decided to issue a public warning, encouraging residents to report any suspicious activity or new riddles immediately. Meanwhile, unbeknownst to the investigators, the real mastermind behind these events sat comfortably in a cozy apartment overlooking the town square. With a satisfied smile, he sipped his morning tea while reviewing newspaper clippings about the latest developments. To him, every clue was part of an intricate game designed to test the limits of human intelligence and perhaps reveal deeper truths about morality itself. Over the next few weeks, the investigation intensified. Special agents from neighboring cities arrived to assist, bringing advanced forensic equipment and fresh perspective. Yet, despite their combined efforts, no concrete leads emerged. The elusive murderer continued sending his enigmatic messages, each one growing increasingly sophisticated. One particular afternoon, as thunderclouds gathered above Maplewood, a breakthrough occurred when a young college student named Michael Anderson came forward with crucial information. While walking his dog near the riverbank, he'd stumbled upon a hidden stash of notebooks filled with drafts of the infamous riddles. More importantly, these documents contained detailed observations about the victim's habits and routines. This discovery marked a turning point in the case. Through careful analysis of the recovered materials, detectives identified distinct patterns linking the victims together. All had unknowingly crossed paths with a reclusive bookstore owner named Jonathan Grayson. Operating out of a quaint little shop called Page's Secrets, Grayson had developed a reputation for his vast knowledge of classic literature and rare editions. However, further investigation revealed a darker side to this seemingly harmless man. Records showed numerous disputes with customers over book valuations, along with several anonymous complaints regarding inappropriate behavior during private readings. When confronted by authorities, Grayson maintained his innocence but exhibited unusual nervousness, frequently quoting lines from Shakespearean plays instead of answering direct questions. As the net tightened around Grayson, additional evidence surfaced connecting him to the crimes. Security footage from nearby establishments captured fleeting glimpses of a figure matching his description, lingering suspiciously close to the victims prior to their deaths. Furthermore, handwriting experts confirmed striking similarities between Grayson's personal correspondence and the notorious riddles. Yet, even as warrants were prepared for his arrest, complications arose. During a routine search of his residence, officers discovered elaborate traps set throughout the property designed to injure intruders. Clearly, Grayson anticipated capture and had taken precautions accordingly. Among the booby traps lay yet another riddle, scrawled hastily onto the wall. "When you see my face, you look in vain. I dwell within, but I'm never contained." Frustrated but undeterred, the investigative team regrouped to tackle this latest challenge. Utilizing psychological profiling techniques, they deduced that Grayson viewed himself as a modern-day philosopher testing society's values through his twisted experiments. This insight guided their approach moving forward, emphasizing understanding rather than mere punishment. Throughout the ensuing months, numerous attempts were made to apprehend Grayson, each ending in failure due to his meticulous planning and extensive knowledge of escape routes. However, persistence eventually paid off when a chance encounter between a patrol officer and Grayson led to a dramatic confrontation inside the very bookstore he once operated. What unfolded inside those walls would become legendary among law enforcement circles. Armed only with wit and courage, Officer Daniel Brooks engaged Grayson in a verbal duel spanning hours, gradually dismantling the killer's carefully constructed facade. By appealing to Grayson's love for literature and intellectual pursuits, Brooks managed to convince him to surrender peacefully, promising protection during legal proceedings. In the aftermath, extensive therapy sessions revealed layers of trauma buried deep within Grayson's psyche, originating from childhood experiences involving abandonment and abuse. While these revelations didn't excuse his actions, they provided invaluable context for understanding his motivations and preventing future occurrences. Maplewood slowly returned to normalcy, though scars remained etched into its collective memory. The case files grew thicker with each passing year, serving as grim reminders of humanity's capacity for both creativity and cruelty. And somewhere amidst those pages lay lessons waiting to be learned about justice, redemption, and the power of words to shape reality. Years later, when asked about the most challenging aspect of the investigation, Detective Thomas Carter often replied thoughtfully, "It wasn't catching the killer that tested us. It was comprehending why someone so gifted could choose destruction over creation." Then, pausing briefly, he would add with quiet conviction, But perhaps that's the true riddle we all must solve. The uncaught killer who spoke in riddles. A chilling autumn evening descended over the quiet town of Elmwood, Massachusetts. The golden hues of sunset painted the sky as leaves rustled gently in the cool breeze. It was 6:45 p.m. when Detective Mark Rivers received a call that would change his life forever. His voice carried a mix of curiosity and concern as he answered the phone. Detective Rivers speaking. On the other end of the line, a mysterious voice spoke in cryptic riddles. I walk without legs and hear without ears. I speak without a mouth and answer without words. The caller paused dramatically before continuing. You'll find my first gift at the old mill by midnight. Mark's heart raced as he quickly assembled his team. The old mill stood on the outskirts of town, its wooden structure creaking against the wind like an ancient sentinel. Arriving exactly at 11:30 p.m., they discovered a horrifying scene. The body of Emily Carter, a local librarian, posed in a manner that seemed to mock their investigation. Beside her lay a note written in red ink. Riddle me this, detective. What has keys but can't open locks? The atmosphere grew heavier with each passing moment. Detectives whispered amongst themselves while examining the crime scene. Mark noticed something peculiar. The killer had left behind no fingerprints, no DNA, nothing tangible. Yet, there were patterns, subtle clues hidden within the riddles themselves. As dawn broke over Elmwood, casting long shadows across the streets, another call came through. This time, the voice taunted them further. Ah, Detective Rivers, so eager to solve my puzzles. Your next challenge awaits you at the abandoned theater downtown. The voice dripped with dark amusement, leaving Mark feeling both frustrated and determined. At precisely 8:00 a.m., under the pale morning light, investigators entered the grand but decaying theater. The air smelled of dust and decay, every step echoing ominously through the empty hall. There, they found Thomas Reed, a retired police officer, arranged in yet another elaborate display. A new riddle awaited. I speak all languages, yet I am silent. I travel everywhere, yet never leave my corner. Days turned into weeks as the killer continued their deadly game. Each murder occurred precisely at midnight, each victim connected by some obscure thread only visible through the lens of the riddles. The townspeople lived in constant fear, their once peaceful lives disrupted by these nightly terrors. Streetlights seemed dimmer, shadows deeper, and whispers more frequent. Detective Rivers worked tirelessly, poring over countless notes and sketches late into the night. At 2:30 a.m. one particular evening, he experienced a breakthrough while staring at the latest riddle, what gets wetter the more it dries. Realization struck him like lightning. Towels! But what did towels represent in this twisted game? Meanwhile, the killer remained one step ahead, always watching, always listening. During a stakeout at the local park on a foggy November night, Mark felt eyes upon him. The moon peeked through the clouds, casting eerie silhouettes among the trees. Suddenly, movement caught his attention near the playground equipment. With cautious steps, he approached, flashlight beam cutting through the mist. But instead of catching the murderer, he encountered another victim, still alive but gravely injured. She managed to whisper, "The answers, they're everywhere," before slipping into unconsciousness. Her name was Lisa Monroe, a high school teacher known for her love of literature and puzzles. Back at the precinct, tensions ran high. Officers exchanged worried glances as Mark pieced together connections between victims. All shared a common interest. They belonged to various puzzle-solving clubs around Elmwood. Was this simply coincidence or part of the killer's intricate plan? Another call came at 9:00 p.m. sharp. The voice sounded almost playful now, relishing their cat-and-mouse game. Detective, do keep up. My final masterpiece awaits you at the lighthouse by sunrise. A pause followed, then soft laughter. And remember, sometimes the simplest answers hide in plain sight. By 5:30 a.m., Mark reached the towering lighthouse overlooking the restless ocean waves. Inside, he found not just another victim, but also evidence pointing towards the killer's identity. Among scattered papers and photographs, one stood out, a group picture from a local charity event years ago. In it, standing beside several familiar faces, was someone who matched descriptions given by surviving witnesses. Using advanced technology unavailable to previous generations, forensic analysts identified crucial details missed earlier. Fingerprint analysis revealed partial prints matching those found on certain objects throughout crime scenes. Furthermore, linguistic experts decoded underlying messages embedded within the riddles themselves, revealing hints about the perpetrator's background and motivations. Yet, despite mounting evidence, capturing the elusive figure proved difficult. Just as authorities closed in during a raid on suspected hideouts, the real mastermind slipped away unnoticed. Their presence lingered, though, manifested through anonymous letters sent to newspapers, mocking law enforcement efforts. One particularly poignant letter read, "Dear Detective, your persistence is admirable. However, you fail to grasp the true nature of our relationship. We are two sides of the same coin, bound together by this dance of intellect and willpower. Shall we continue our game?" Years passed without resolution. Though numerous suspects emerged, none fit perfectly within established parameters. Meanwhile, Elmwood gradually returned to normalcy, albeit scarred by memories of its darkest chapter. Streets regained their usual vibrancy, children laughed in parks again, and businesses thrived as if trying to outrun past horrors. Still, Detective Mark Rivers couldn't let go. Even after retiring officially, he maintained personal files regarding unsolved cases, including this infamous series of murders. On quiet evenings, sitting alone in his study, surrounded by books and memorabilia, he revisited every clue, searching for that missing piece which might finally bring closure. Then, unexpectedly, hope rekindled. Modern advancements brought forth new possibilities previously unimaginable. Genetic testing capabilities expanded exponentially, allowing comparison against vast databases worldwide. Additionally, artificial intelligence algorithms developed specifically for pattern recognition offered fresh perspectives on seemingly random sequences contained within the riddles. Through collaborative efforts involving multiple agencies and institutions, significant breakthroughs materialized. Cross-referencing data collected over decades led investigators back to someone overlooked initially due to perceived alibis. As additional layers peeled away, undeniable proof accumulated implicating none other than Dr. Jonathan Hale, a respected psychologist specializing in criminal behavior. Dr. Hale possessed perfect knowledge concerning human psychology, enabling manipulation of both victims and pursuers alike. His fascination with puzzles stemmed from childhood experiences, solving complex mathematical problems alongside emotional struggles caused by parental neglect. Over time, this passion morphed into something darker, driving him to create living works of art through calculated destruction. Arrest warrants issued immediately resulted in dramatic confrontations across several locations simultaneously. Eventually, cornered inside his private clinic during late afternoon hours, Dr. Hale attempted resistance using psychological warfare tactics honed over years of practice. Despite initial successes confusing officers present, superior numbers ultimately overwhelmed him. During subsequent interrogations conducted under strict supervision, Dr. Hale displayed remarkable composure, answering questions directly yet evasively. He admitted guilt freely while simultaneously challenging notions of morality and justice. According to him, his actions served higher purposes beyond comprehension of ordinary minds. Court proceedings stretched extensively, featuring expert testimonies dissecting aspects of case thoroughly. Public opinion divided sharply along lines drawn by media coverage portraying either monster or misunderstood genius depending on perspective taken. Ultimately, verdict delivered confirmed premeditated murders committed deliberately according to predetermined schemes outlined meticulously beforehand. Sentenced to life imprisonment without possibility parole, Dr. Jonathan Hale accepted judgment stoically. Behind bars, he continued crafting sophisticated puzzles, challenging brightest minds available today. Some say he remains undefeated. Others claim solutions exist merely awaiting discovery. Whatever truth may be, legacy endures, influencing future generations studying criminology worldwide. Elmwood itself transformed significantly since those troubled times. Memorials erected honoring fallen citizens serve constant reminders, vigilance necessary maintaining safety communities everywhere. Educational programs implemented teaching critical thinking skills combined with empathy development aim, preventing similar tragedies recurring elsewhere. The Poison Pen Mystery of Circleville. In the quaint little town of Circleville, nestled between rolling hills and dense forests in the heart of America, a peculiar mystery began to unfold. The year was an unremarkable one, but the events that followed would leave a lasting impression on everyone who called this peaceful community home. It all started with a single letter. On a crisp autumn morning, as golden leaves danced gently in the breeze, a mysterious note arrived at the doorstep of Mrs. Eleanor Whitmore, the esteemed librarian of Circleville's only library. The envelope bore no return address, its edges slightly frayed from being carried through unknown hands. With a curious frown, Mrs. Whitmore opened it carefully, her heart skipping a beat as she read the contents. The letter contained venomous words, accusing her of stealing books from the library's collection. Her eyes widened in disbelief, her voice trembling as she whispered, "This can't be true." Meanwhile, across town, Mr. Harold Green, the friendly grocer known for his warm smile and generous discounts, received a similar letter. His cheerful demeanor faded instantly as he read accusations of selling expired goods to unsuspecting customers. He looked around his bustling store, wondering who could have written such malicious lies. His hands shook slightly as he folded the paper and placed it in his pocket, feeling a mixture of anger and fear. As days passed, more letters appeared, targeting prominent figures in Circleville. Each missive carried a toxic message, spreading falsehoods and damaging reputations. The townspeople grew restless, their once harmonious community threatened by this unseen menace. Suspicion began to creep into every conversation, casting long shadows over friendships and relationships. Detective James Carter, a seasoned investigator with sharp eyes and quicker wit, was called upon to unravel this perplexing case. Arriving in Circleville on a Monday afternoon, he stepped out of his car onto Main Street, taking in the picturesque scenery. The air carried a faint scent of pine trees mingling with freshly baked bread from the local bakery. Yet beneath this idyllic surface lay a brewing storm of mistrust and deceit. His first stop was the library, where Mrs. Whitmore awaited him nervously behind her desk. She recounted the details of receiving the letter, her voice quivering yet determined. Detective Carter listened intently, noting every inflection and pause. Afterward, he visited Mr. Green's grocery store, observing how the usually jovial man now carried himself with a heavy burden. These initial interviews set the stage for what promised to be a challenging investigation. As night fell over Circleville, casting deep shadows among the buildings, Detective Carter sat in his room at the Bluebell Inn, reviewing the evidence collected so far. The letters themselves provided little clues. They were typed on plain paper using a standard font, offering no fingerprints or distinctive marks. Yet something nagged at the back of his mind, a pattern perhaps too subtle to notice immediately. Tuesday morning brought new developments when young Thomas Johnson, the paperboy, discovered another letter tucked inside his delivery bag. This time, it targeted Mayor Linda Hayes, questioning her integrity in office. The news spread quickly through the town like wildfire, fueling even more gossip and speculation. At the coffee shop, tongues wagged furiously while outside. Clouds gathered ominously, signaling an approaching storm. Detective Carter decided to widen his search, interviewing various residents about any unusual activities they might have noticed recently. Some mentioned seeing a figure dressed in dark clothing near the post office late at night, though descriptions varied widely. Others recalled overhearing heated arguments between certain individuals, which seemed unrelated until now. Every piece of information added complexity to the puzzle before him. By Wednesday evening, tensions within Circleville reached boiling point. Neighbors who had shared meals together for years now avoided each other's gazes. Children playing in the park were hushed prematurely by anxious parents, fearing further incidents. Even the normally lively barbershop quartet practiced silently indoors instead of performing publicly as usual. Thursday dawned gray and damp, reflecting the mood of its inhabitants. Detective Carter paid another visit to Mrs. Whitmore, whose courage had grown alongside her determination to clear her name. Together, they examined library records searching for anomalies that might link someone to these poisoned pen letters. Meanwhile, Mr. Green organized a meeting at his store, inviting anyone willing to share what they knew or suspected about the situation. That night, under flickering lamplight, several breakthroughs occurred simultaneously. A clerk remembered seeing identical envelopes purchased weeks ago by a regular customer whose identity remained elusive. Another witness claimed spotting footprints leading away from the post office towards an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. Piecing together these fragments, Detective Carter formulated a plan requiring stealth and precision. Friday morning found him staking out said warehouse armed with flashlight and notebook. Hours passed slowly as rain pattered against metal walls, creating eerie echoes inside. Just as daylight waned, revealing orange hues through broken windows, movement caught his eye near stacked crates. Heart pounding steadily, he approached cautiously, calling out firmly yet calmly, "Circleville Police Department, identify yourself." A startled gasp answered him, followed by hurried footsteps retreating deeper into darkness. Brandishing his flashlight beam, Detective Carter pursued relentlessly until cornering the culprit, none other than Walter Finch, a reclusive writer believed harmless due to his quiet nature. Confronted with overwhelming evidence, including matching stationery and handwriting samples, Walter eventually confessed, motivated by jealousy towards successful townsfolk he envied secretly. Relief washed over Circleville once news broke about resolution of the poison pen mystery. Apologies flowed freely among affected parties, restoring harmony lost temporarily. Lessons learned strengthened bonds amongst residents, reminding them value of trustworthiness and open communication. And though life returned mostly normal thereafter, occasional mention of those infamous letters served reminder never underestimate power words wield, whether spoken aloud or written silently. The phantom killer who preyed on lovers. It was a cold February night in the small town of Eldridge, Texas. The air was crisp with the faint scent of pine from the nearby forest, and the moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the deserted streets. At around 10:30 p.m., two young lovers, Jessica Carter and Mark Thompson, decided to take their usual evening stroll to Lover's Lane, a secluded road that wound through dense woods just outside of town. Jessica, a 24-year-old schoolteacher with long brown hair and warm hazel eyes, had grown up in Eldridge her entire life. She knew every corner of the town like the back of her hand. Her companion, Mark, a 27-year-old mechanic with short blonde hair and a friendly smile, had moved to Eldridge only 6 months ago but quickly became a familiar face at the local diner where he often met Jessica for coffee breaks. The couple walked hand in hand down the dimly lit street, their laughter echoing softly against the quiet night. "Isn't it beautiful out here?" Jessica asked, her voice filled with wonder as she looked up at the stars peeking through the tree branches. Mark nodded, his arm draped casually around her shoulders as they approached the entrance to Lover's Lane. At precisely 11:00 p.m., another vehicle entered the same stretch of road, a dark sedan that had been spotted by several residents over the past few weeks, always appearing late at night and disappearing just as mysteriously. The driver, whose identity would remain unknown for years to come, seemed to have a particular interest in couples who ventured into this isolated area. As Jessica and Mark reached their favorite spot along the lane, where the trees formed a natural arch overhead, they paused to enjoy the peacefulness of the night. The sound of distant crickets provided a soothing background rhythm to their conversation about future plans and dreams. Neither noticed, the car parked half a mile away, its headlights extinguished, patiently waiting in the shadows. Suddenly, at approximately 11:15 p.m., a sharp noise shattered the tranquility, the unmistakable click of a gun being cocked. Both froze in terror as they turned toward the source of the sound. Standing mere feet away was a figure cloaked entirely in black, face obscured by a hood, holding what appeared to be a revolver pointed directly at them. Their hearts pounding wildly, Jessica instinctively stepped in front of Mark, shielding him with her body while searching desperately for words that might calm the situation. "Please," she managed to say, her voice trembling but determined, "we haven't done anything wrong." The response came not in words, but in action. A single shot rang out into the silent night, followed immediately by another. Neighbors miles away reported hearing the distant pops, though none suspected their significance until morning. By dawn, when concerned family members couldn't reach either Jessica or Mark, they organized a search party that discovered the horrifying scene near Lover's Lane. Authorities were called in, initiating one of the most perplexing investigations Eldridge had ever seen. Detectives noted peculiar details. No robbery attempt evident, no signs of struggle beyond defensive wounds on Jessica's hands, and perhaps most unsettling of all, no clear motive linking these victims to any others. Over the following months, similar attacks occurred throughout different states across America. Washington State, Florida, Ohio, each targeting young couples in remote locations during nighttime hours. Investigators began connecting patterns between the cases, identifying striking similarities in MO, modus operandi, always two victims per incident, typically found within close proximity to each other, and consistently executed with extreme precision using firearms. Local law enforcement agencies collaborated with federal authorities, forming task forces dedicated solely to solving this string of murders now referred to as the Phantom Killer cases. Profilers developed composite sketches based on witness testimonies from those rare instances where survivors managed to escape. However, descriptions varied enough to create confusion rather than clarity. Meanwhile, back in Eldridge, community members struggled to cope with the tragedy that had touched so many lives. Vigils were held regularly at the site where Jessica and Mark had been taken too soon, flowers placed respectfully beside makeshift memorials bearing photographs of smiling faces frozen forever in time. Parents warned their children about staying safe after dark, while teenagers whispered tales around campfires about the ghostly figure said to haunt Lover's Lane still. Years passed without resolution, frustration mounting among both investigators and citizens alike. Then, unexpectedly, new evidence emerged through advancements in forensic technology applied to old case files. DNA samples collected from various crime scenes finally yielded matches against national databases, leading detectives closer to identifying potential suspects. Yet, even as leads developed, questions persisted regarding why such violence targeted specific demographics and whether more answers lay hidden beneath layers of coincidence or conspiracy. Throughout it all, memories of Jessica and Mark remained vivid, reminders of love cut short and justice delayed. Their story served as a cautionary tale told generation after generation, warning lovers everywhere about venturing alone into places where darkness hides secrets best left undisturbed. And though progress continued toward uncovering truths behind the Phantom Killer's reign of terror, some mysteries may never find resolution, leaving us instead with lessons learned and hearts forever changed by experiences we cannot fully comprehend. The unsolved acts, murders of an entire family. On a cold, moonless night in the quiet town of Willow Creek, nestled deep within the heart of rural America, tragedy struck the unsuspecting household of the Thompson family. The air was still, with only the faint rustle of leaves whispering through the trees as if nature itself held its breath. At 2:17 a.m., The peacefulness of this small community would be shattered forever. Henry Thompson, a respected local carpenter known for his kind demeanor and skillful hands, lived in a modest two-story home at 45 Maple Street with his wife Margaret, a beloved school teacher admired by students and colleagues alike. Their children, Thomas, age 16, and Rebecca, just 12, were well liked among their peers, often seen helping neighbors and participating in church activities. This ordinary American family seemed destined for a lifetime of happiness and prosperity. That fateful night began like any other, with the family retiring to bed after a simple dinner of roasted chicken and vegetables. Henry had been working late on a custom cabinet order, while Margaret graded papers from her fourth-grade class. Thomas tinkered with his bicycle in the garage, dreaming of summer adventures, and Rebecca carefully organized her collection of seashells she'd gathered during their last vacation at Lake Michigan. As they each settled into their respective rooms, the house fell silent under the watchful gaze of the stars above. But somewhere in the darkness, an unseen presence moved silently through the shadows. Footsteps that made no sound approached the house, leaving imprints in the soft earth that would later confound investigators. A single beam of light flickered briefly before disappearing entirely, as though whoever approached knew how to remain undetected. The Thompsons slept peacefully, unaware of the impending horror that crept ever closer. At precisely 2:17 a.m., according to the clock on the kitchen wall that would later become crucial evidence, the first blow fell. The weapon chosen was brutal in its simplicity. An axe used regularly by Henry for splitting firewood now turned against its owner with horrifying efficiency. The attack came without warning, with such force and precision that it suggested both familiarity with the house layout and intent to eliminate every living soul inside. Each strike was delivered with calculated purpose, leaving behind a trail of devastation that would haunt the community for generations. Margaret's bedroom door showed signs of forced entry, though it had been locked from the inside. The attacker must have worked quickly, moving methodically through the house like a predator stalking its prey. Her screams likely woke the household, but they were silenced almost immediately. Thomas, hearing his mother's cries, reached for the baseball bat he kept by his bed, showing remarkable bravery for a boy his age. However, his attempt at self-defense proved futile against the relentless assault. Rebecca's room showed evidence of struggle, with overturned furniture and scattered belongings suggesting a desperate fight for survival. Yet even her youthful energy couldn't withstand the determined attacker who showed no mercy. Henry, awakened by the commotion, managed to reach the top of the stairs before meeting his fate, his body found where he had fallen, still clutching a broken piece of wood in a final act of defiance. When Sheriff Johnson arrived at 6:32 a.m., responding to a neighbor's call about strange noises heard during the night, the scene that greeted him defied comprehension. Bloodstains marked every surface, creating macabre patterns that told the story of that night's horrors. The axe lay abandoned near the front door, its blade still wet with the lifeblood of 4 innocent victims. Outside, tire tracks led away from the house, stopping abruptly before disappearing into the dense forest beyond. What made this case particularly baffling was the lack of obvious motive or suspect. The Thompsons were well liked, with no known enemies. Their finances were stable, ruling out robbery as the primary reason. Neighbors reported seeing nothing unusual, though one elderly couple claimed they thought they saw headlights moving slowly down Maple Street around midnight, but dismissed it as probably just someone coming home late from work. The investigation stretched on for months, then years, exhausting all possible leads. Detectives interviewed everyone who had contact with the family, analyzed every piece of evidence, and explored every conceivable scenario. Yet, despite their best efforts, the identity of the killer remained shrouded in mystery. Several theories emerged over time, perhaps a disgruntled former employee of Henry's, or maybe someone targeting Margaret due to a perceived slight at school. Some whispered about supernatural forces at play, citing the peculiar way the attacks unfolded and the eerie feeling that lingered long after the crime scene had been cleared. As years turned into decades, the case file grew thicker with unanswered questions. Why did the attacker leave no fingerprints? How did they know the exact location of the axe? What happened to the vehicle that disappeared into the woods? Most haunting of all was the question of why. What drove someone to commit such a heinous act against a family who had brought nothing but kindness to their community? Willow Creek has never fully recovered from that night. Even today, locals speak of the Thompson murders in hushed tones, their voices trembling with a mixture of fear and sorrow. The house at 45 Maple Street remains empty, its windows boarded up, standing as a grim reminder of the unsolved tragedy that unfolded within its walls. Every year, on the anniversary of the murders, candles are lit throughout the town, their flickering flames symbolizing hope that someday, somehow, justice will be served for the Thompson family. For those who dare to visit the site late at night, some claim to hear faint echoes of that terrible evening, muffled screams, thudding footsteps, and the unmistakable ring of an axe striking wood. Whether these sounds are mere wind playing tricks on the ears or genuine paranormal activity remains unknown. But one thing is certain. Until the truth comes to light, the spirits of Henry, Margaret, Thomas, and Rebecca will continue to haunt the memories of all who remember their tragic fate. In the days following the discovery, the community rallied together in ways that revealed both their strength and vulnerability. Funerals were held simultaneously at the old stone church where the Thompsons had worshipped faithfully every Sunday morning. The pews overflowed with mourners, many traveling from distant towns to pay their respects. Pastor Williams delivered a eulogy that resonated deeply with all present, speaking not just of the lives lost, but of the enduring human spirit that refuses to be broken by evil. Detective Carter, newly assigned to the Homicide Division, dedicated himself entirely to solving the case. His notes filled dozens of notebooks, each page meticulously detailing interviews, observations, and speculative connections. He became obsessed with the pattern of the attacks, how the murderer seemed to target each victim in a specific sequence that suggested intimate knowledge of the family's habits and routines. The fact that the axe had been returned to its original place after being used added another layer of complexity to the investigation. Meanwhile, the media coverage brought national attention to Willow Creek. Reporters descended upon the town, capturing images of the grieving community and interviewing anyone who had even a passing acquaintance with the Thompsons. This sudden spotlight created tension between residents who wanted answers and those who wished to protect their privacy during such a vulnerable time. Local businesses suffered as tourists avoided the area, fearing the stigma associated with the infamous murders. Psychologists studying the case noted several disturbing aspects: the choice of weapon, the precision of the strikes, and the apparent planning involved all pointed toward a perpetrator with significant psychological issues. Yet strangely, none of the psychological profiles developed over the years matched any known individual in the surrounding areas. This discrepancy led to further speculation about whether the killer might have been an outsider who understood the community dynamics better than expected. Over time, new technology offered renewed hope for resolution. DNA analysis techniques advanced significantly since the initial investigation, allowing forensic teams to re-examine evidence collected from the scene. Hair samples found caught in the axe's handle were subjected to modern testing methods, though results so far have proven inconclusive. Similarly, enhanced fingerprint detection systems failed to produce matches against any existing databases, adding to the growing list of mysteries surrounding this case. Community members established a memorial fund in honor of the Thompson family, using proceeds to support local youth programs and educational initiatives. Each year, scholarships are awarded bearing the names of Thomas and Rebecca, ensuring that their potential contributions to society live on through others' achievements. Margaret's teaching legacy continues through annual workshops held in her name, promoting innovative approaches to elementary education. Yet, despite these positive developments, the underlying sadness persists. Parents warn their children not to wander alone after dark, casting suspicious glances at strangers passing through town. Newcomers find themselves subjected to intense scrutiny, their backgrounds thoroughly investigated by longtime residents wary of potential threats hiding in plain sight. Even law enforcement officers who've worked the beat for decades admit to feeling uneasy patrolling the streets after hours, their instincts telling them something isn't quite right about the atmosphere in Willow Creek. Recent developments have sparked renewed interest in the case. A retired detective claims to have uncovered a connection between the Thompson murders and similar unsolved cases across several states, though details remain scarce. Anonymous tips continue to pour in, each one meticulously checked but ultimately leading nowhere substantial. Private investigators, hired by family friends, pursue various theories, occasionally discovering intriguing leads that seem promising before collapsing under closer examination. The passage of time hasn't dulled the pain for those closest to the victims. Cousins and extended family members gather annually to share memories, finding comfort in keeping alive stories of laughter and love rather than focusing solely on the violent end. They've formed a support network that extends beyond their immediate circle, reaching out to other families affected by senseless violence nationwide. Through these connections, they aim to create meaningful change in how communities respond to such tragedies, hoping to prevent future occurrences. Scientific advancements promise continued attempts at solving the mystery. Cold case units equipped with cutting-edge technology periodically revisit the evidence, applying new methods to old data. Genetic genealogy databases expand daily, increasing the likelihood of identifying potential suspects through familial connections. Artificial intelligence algorithms analyze patterns in seemingly unrelated crimes, searching for links that human investigators might overlook. Legal experts debate whether statutes of limitations apply in cases like this, considering the evolving nature of evidence collection and analysis. Some argue that technological breakthroughs should reset clocks on investigations, allowing prosecution regardless of elapsed time. Others caution against undermining established legal principles, emphasizing the importance of maintaining fair trial standards even when emotions run high. Philosophical discussions arise about the nature of justice itself. Can true closure ever be achieved when victims can't testify to their suffering? Does punishing a perpetrator undo the harm caused? These questions challenge our understanding of retribution versus rehabilitation, prompting deeper consideration of what society truly seeks when pursuing solutions to violent crimes. Throughout it all, the house at 45 Maple Street stands as a silent sentinel, its boarded windows reflecting moonlight while concealing secrets buried within its walls. Ghost hunters and paranormal investigators occasionally obtain permission to explore the property, claiming experiences that range from unsettling to terrifying. Electronic voice phenomena recordings captured during these sessions include unexplained whispers resembling cries for help, though skeptics attribute these sounds to environmental factors or equipment malfunction. Artists, inspired by the tragedy, create works expressing different facets of the event. Paintings depicting shadowy figures wielding axes, sculptures representing fragmented family structures, musical compositions capturing emotional turmoil. These creative expressions provide outlets for processing collective grief while preserving memory through alternative mediums. School curriculums incorporate lessons about the case, using it as a teaching tool for discussing topics like mental health awareness, conflict resolution, and community safety measures. Internationally, criminologists study the Thompson murders as a case study in serial killer behavior patterns, though definitive classification remains elusive. Comparative analyses reveal similarities with other high-profile unsolved cases, suggesting possible links between perpetrators operating across wide geographic areas. Interpol maintains records of relevant information, facilitating global cooperation should additional evidence emerge connecting disparate incidents. Technological innovations continually reshape approaches to investigating cold cases. Drones equipped with thermal imaging capabilities scan wooded areas surrounding Willow Creek, searching for hidden burial sites or discarded evidence. Underwater sonar devices explore nearby lakes and rivers, seeking submerged vehicles or personal items potentially linked to the crime. Virtual reality simulations reconstruct the crime scene, allowing investigators to experience events from multiple perspectives without physically altering preserved evidence. Public perception evolves as new generations learn about the tragedy. Social media platforms host discussions where younger users express opinions shaped by access to vast amounts of information unavailable during earlier stages of the investigation. Online forums dedicated to true crime enthusiasts generate thousands of posts speculating about motives, identities, and methods, sometimes providing valuable insights to official investigators. Local historians document changes in community attitudes over time, noting shifts in how residents cope with lingering fears. Oral histories collected from long-term inhabitants reveal fascinating adaptations. Some people develop elaborate security systems for their homes, while others embrace openness as a form of defiance against unseen threats. These contrasting responses highlight complex human reactions to trauma and uncertainty. Scientific research into criminal psychology benefits from studying this particular case, contributing to broader understanding of psychopathic tendencies and behavioral triggers. Experiments conducted using controlled environments simulate conditions believed present during the murders, helping refine theories about attacker mindset and decision-making processes. Results inform development of improved profiling techniques used worldwide in combating violent crime. Cultural impacts extend beyond immediate geographical boundaries, influencing literature, film, and television portrayals of small-town America. Writers draw inspiration from elements of the story, crafting fictional narratives that explore themes of innocence, lost, justice denied, and resilience demonstrated in face of overwhelming adversity. These artistic interpretations maintain public interest in the original events, ensuring continued pursuit of answers. Technological progress accelerates pace of investigation, updates dissemination. Mobile applications notify registered users about latest developments, enabling real-time participation in crowdsourced efforts to solve mysteries. Blockchain technology secures sensitive information sharing between authorized parties, enhancing collaboration while protecting privacy concerns associated with confidential materials. Philosophical debates intensify regarding ethical implications of using advanced technologies in pursuit of justice. Questions arise about appropriate use of artificial intelligence in making determinations affecting human lives, balancing need for swift resolutions against potential risks of wrongful accusations based on incomplete datasets. Discussions extend into realms of moral philosophy, examining nature of forgiveness and possibility of redemption for individuals involved in such heinous acts. Throughout these developments, core essence of tragedy remains unchanged. 4 lives brutally taken, leaving behind ripple effects felt throughout entire community. While search for definitive answers continues, emphasis shifts increasingly toward preventing future occurrences through education, awareness, and proactive measures addressing root causes of violent behavior. Hope endures that someday, somewhere, breakthrough will occur, bringing closure not just for remaining family members, but for entire nation watching this ongoing saga unfold across decades. The killer who made a city play jazz to stay alive. It was a humid summer evening in New Orleans, Louisiana. The air smelled of salt water from the nearby Mississippi River and the faint aroma of gumbo wafting from street-side vendors. At precisely 8:15 p.m., Detective Marcus Thompson stood outside the historic Preservation Hall, his trench coat clinging to his body in the sticky heat. He glanced at his pocket watch, its ticking sound providing a steady rhythm against the chaos surrounding him. Marcus had been investigating the mysterious case of Victor Kane, a notorious underworld figure known for his peculiar obsession with jazz music. Unlike other criminals who sought power through fear, Victor operated under an unusual rule. He would only commit his crimes if the city played jazz continuously. This strange condition had puzzled law enforcement for years, creating a unique tension between order and chaos in the Crescent City. As Marcus adjusted his tie, beads of sweat forming on his forehead, he remembered the first time Victor's pattern became clear. It was during Mardi Gras when the entire city was already immersed in music. A series of seemingly unrelated thefts revealed a pattern that pointed directly to Victor's involvement. What made these crimes stand out wasn't just their execution, but the fact that every stolen item had some connection to jazz history, rare vinyl records, vintage trumpets, and even photographs of legendary musicians. The detective took a deep breath, pausing to observe the scene around him. Street performers played lively tunes on their instruments, while neon signs flickered above Bourbon Street's famous bars. This was more than just a criminal investigation. It was about understanding the soul of a city where music wasn't merely entertainment, but a way of life. Victor Kane's modus operandi was as complex as a jazz improvisation. His crimes always occurred during live performances, timed perfectly so the music would cover any suspicious sounds. Marcus discovered that Victor had an extraordinary ability to predict performance schedules across the city, almost as if he had an insider's knowledge of the music scene. This led to the formation of a special task force within the NOPD, New Orleans Police Department, dedicated solely to monitoring musical events and coordinating with venue owners. Detective Thompson walked slowly towards Jackson Square, where a small crowd had gathered around a street band playing "When the Saints Go Marching In." The melody carried through the warm night air, mingling with the distant sound of church bells ringing 9 o'clock. Marcus felt a chill despite the heat as he recalled how Victor once escaped capture by blending into a second-line parade, using the rhythm of drums and brass instruments to mask his movements. The investigation revealed another layer to Victor's personality, his genuine passion for preserving jazz history. While his methods were undeniably criminal, there was something almost noble about his dedication to protecting artifacts that told the story of this unique American art form. Marcus couldn't help but admire how Victor had managed to turn his crimes into a statement about cultural preservation, forcing the city to confront its own relationship with its musical heritage. At exactly 9:30 p.m., Marcus arrived at Congo Square, where a traditional drum circle pulsed with ancient rhythms. Here, the detective found himself face to face with one of Victor's associates, a former trumpet player named Walter Hayes. Walter's eyes held a mix of fear and defiance as he explained how Victor had convinced dozens of musicians to participate in his elaborate scheme, promising them protection and resources to keep jazz alive in a rapidly changing world. "Detective," Walter began hesitantly, his voice trembling slightly, "you have to understand, Victor isn't just some ordinary criminal. He sees himself as a guardian of our music's legacy." Marcus nodded thoughtfully, realizing that this case wasn't simply about stopping a criminal mastermind. It was about navigating the delicate balance between enforcing the law and respecting the city's vibrant cultural traditions. As midnight approached, the French Quarter transformed into a symphony of sounds. Bands played from balconies, street performers entertained crowds, and clubs spilled over with enthusiastic dancers. Marcus observed everything from the shadows of Royal Street, where antique shops displayed their wares beneath gas lamps casting golden light onto cobblestone streets. He noticed how each musician seemed to play with extra intensity tonight, as if they knew their music held the key to solving this intricate puzzle. Victor Kane's headquarters turned out to be an unexpected location, the old Plessy Theater, hidden behind layers of boarded-up windows and graffiti-covered walls. Marcus approached cautiously at 12:45 a.m., aware that Victor's operation extended far beyond simple thievery. Inside, he found a labyrinth of rooms filled with jazz memorabilia, each piece carefully cataloged and preserved. Records dating back to the early 1900s sat alongside handwritten sheet music and photographs capturing moments of jazz history. The detective paused before entering the main chamber where Victor awaited him. The room was bathed in soft blue light, reminiscent of a late-night jazz club. Vinyl records spun silently on turntables, their grooves reflecting moonlight streaming through broken windows. Victor stood surrounded by speakers playing Miles Davis's Kind of Blue at a volume that filled the space without overwhelming it. Detective Thompson, Victor greeted him warmly, his voice carrying the smoothness of a saxophone solo. I've been expecting you. There was no hostility in his tone, just a calm confidence that suggested he'd anticipated this confrontation. Marcus noted how different Victor appeared from typical criminals. His suit was impeccably tailored, and his demeanor exuded the quiet authority of someone deeply connected to the music he loved. What you've done here is remarkable, Marcus admitted, choosing his words carefully. But it doesn't change the fact that your methods break the law. Victor smiled knowingly, gesturing toward the vast collections surrounding them. And what you see here, it represents something greater than mere possessions. These items tell stories, preserve memories, and maintain connections to our past. Their conversation stretched long into the night, covering topics ranging from the origins of jazz to its evolution through various eras. Victor explained how each stolen artifact served a purpose in his grand vision to create a comprehensive archive of jazz history that would remain accessible to future generations. He described how he'd worked with musicians to ensure their craft continued thriving, even as economic pressures threatened many traditional venues. Marcus listened intently, recognizing the truth in Victor's words while still grappling with his role as a law enforcement officer. By 3:00 a.m., they reached a turning point in their discussion. Victor proposed a compromise that could satisfy both justice and preservation, transferring ownership of his collection to a legitimate institution while continuing his work within legal boundaries. In exchange, he offered to assist the police in dismantling other criminal networks operating in the city. As dawn broke over New Orleans, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Marcus left the Plessy Theater with a renewed understanding of the city's complex relationship with its musical heritage. The deal struck that night allowed Victor to transition into a legitimate role within the jazz community, while still holding him accountable for his past actions. More importantly, it ensured that the spirit of New Orleans' jazz tradition would continue flourishing, protected by those who truly understood its value. In the weeks that followed, the NOPD implemented new policies integrating cultural awareness into their crime prevention strategies. Musicians gained greater recognition as vital contributors to the city's identity rather than mere entertainers. And through it all, the music played on not as a cover for criminal activity, but as a celebration of resilience and creativity that defined the very soul of New Orleans. Detective Marcus Thompson often returned to the French Quarter in the evenings, listening to the same melodies that had once accompanied Victor's schemes. Now, however, they carried a different meaning, a testament to how even the most unconventional situations could lead to positive change when approached with understanding and respect for the culture they represented. As the city continued to evolve, its commitment to preserving jazz remained stronger than ever, proving that sometimes the most effective solutions come from finding harmony between opposing forces. The family stalked by the watcher. It was a quiet evening in the small suburban town of Maplewood, New Jersey. The sun had just set, casting a warm orange glow over the neighborhood as shadows began to stretch longer across lawns and driveways. The streets were calm, with only the occasional sound of children's laughter fading into the distance. In one of these serene streets stood a modest two-story home at 45 Elm Street. This house belonged to the Thompson family, Michael, Lisa, and their two teenage children, Jake and Claire. The Thompsons had lived in this house for nearly 8 years. They loved its cozy charm, the large oak tree in the front yard, and the friendly community that surrounded them. However, on this particular night, something felt different. There was an unsettling stillness in the air, almost as if the world around them had paused. Little did they know, their lives were about to take a dark turn. Lisa was preparing dinner in the kitchen when she noticed a piece of paper slipped under the door. She frowned, wondering who could have left it there without her noticing. Picking it up cautiously, she unfolded the note and read the chilling words, "I'm watching you." Her heart skipped a beat. Who would do such a thing? Shaking off the unease, she decided it must be some kind of prank. Still, the message lingered in her mind like an unwelcome guest. Later that evening, Michael came home from work. He greeted his family warmly before sitting down at the dining table to enjoy the meal Lisa had prepared. As they ate, Lisa hesitated but finally told him about the note. Michael dismissed it initially, attributing it to bored teenagers or maybe even a neighbor playing a harmless joke. But deep down, both parents couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Over the next few days, more notes appeared. Each one carried a similar tone, cryptic yet menacing. "You think no one sees what happens behind closed doors?" Or, "Even now, I'm closer than you realize." The messages grew bolder, each one leaving the Thompsons increasingly frightened. They started locking all windows and doors every night, checking the perimeter of their property multiple times. Yet, despite their precautions, the notes kept coming. One morning, Claire found a note taped to her bedroom window while getting ready for school. It read, "Sleep tight, Claire, sweet dreams." Her hands trembled as she brought the note inside to show her parents. Michael immediately called the local police department, explaining the situation. Officers arrived shortly after, taking statements and promising to investigate further. Surveillance cameras were installed around the house, hoping to catch whoever was responsible. Days turned into weeks, and though nothing concrete emerged from the investigation, the tension in the household remained palpable. Every creak of the floorboards, every rustle of leaves outside sent shivers down their spines. Even during daylight hours, the family avoided being alone, sticking together whenever possible. The once peaceful home now felt suffocating, filled with paranoia and fear. Then came the worst discovery. One rainy afternoon, Jake returned home early from soccer practice. While waiting for the rest of his family, he decided to clean out the attic space, rarely used except for storage. Among dusty boxes and forgotten trinkets, he stumbled upon a hidden compartment beneath the floorboards. Inside, he found a collection of photographs documenting the Thompson family's daily life. Pictures of Lisa walking the dog, Michael commuting to work, Claire laughing with friends at school, and even intimate moments captured through bedroom windows. Jake rushed downstairs, his voice trembling as he described what he'd found. Lisa gasped, tears welling up in her eyes, while Michael clenched his fists tightly. This wasn't just a stalker, it was someone intimately familiar with their routines, habits, and private moments. Someone who had been observing them for far too long. The police returned promptly, confiscating the evidence and expanding their search. Detectives interviewed neighbors, reviewed security footage from surrounding homes, and combed through databases of registered offenders. Meanwhile, the Thompsons hired private security guards to patrol their property around the clock. Friends and relatives offered support, but the overwhelming sense of violation hung heavy over everyone involved. As the investigation progressed, leads pointed towards someone unexpected, a reclusive man named Walter living 3 houses down. Walter was known locally as somewhat eccentric, often keeping to himself and avoiding social interactions. When questioned by authorities, he became agitated, speaking in riddles and refusing to cooperate fully. Searches of his home uncovered additional incriminating evidence, including journals detailing obsessive thoughts about the Thompson family. Confronted with undeniable proof, Walter eventually confessed to stalking the Thompsons. His motive, he claimed, stemmed from feelings of loneliness and resentment toward what he perceived as their perfect life. Over time, his fixation escalated into surveillance and harassment, culminating in the disturbing notes and invasive photography. Though relieved to finally understand the source of their torment, the Thompson family struggled to move forward. Trusting others became difficult, and the trauma lingered long after Walter was arrested and sentenced. Counseling sessions helped them process their emotions, but the scars ran deep. Their once cherished home now held painful memories, forcing them to consider relocating elsewhere. On a crisp autumn day, Months later, the Thompsons gathered in their living room for a final meeting with their therapist. Together, they discussed ways to rebuild trust and reclaim their sense of safety. Though progress was slow, they vowed to face the future with resilience and hope. Outside, the wind gently swayed the branches of the old oak tree, symbolizing strength amidst adversity. The colony that vanished without a trace. In the quiet expanse of coastal North America, there once existed a small settlement known as Roanoke. It was a place where hope mingled with uncertainty, and dreams were both nurtured and tested by the untamed wilderness that surrounded it. The story begins in the late 1500s when a group of settlers from England arrived on these shores, eager to carve out a new life for themselves in what they hoped would become a thriving colony.